During adolescence, the brain is forming connections, synapses, at a high rate. The music that we hear later in life is compared to this previous experience, this framework that is built into the brain during our adolescent years. It is said the musical brain is fully developed by 14. So, now we know why humans are so interested in music. But how are humans so interested in music?
You mean what goes on inside the brain? Chemically? Physically?
Inside the brain.
Inside the brain.
Inside the brain?
Let's see. Time travel, temporal lobe. I've got it! Whoa!
Where are we?
I think we're in Alicia's brain.
Alicia's brain looks oddly familiar. Kinda looks like the Amy Edith Pop music building.
Weird. Who's that?
Hey guys!
Alicia!
Wait.
What are you doing in your own brain?
This is my subconscious. This is my voice inside my head. So when I'm audiating, this is what I hear.
Oh, so essentially you're a manifestation of audiation.
Duh.
When a human perceives music, the sound passes through the auditory system via the inner ear and goes directly to the cerebellum. So then, what is the cerebellum?
The cerebellum is the part of the brain that connects to the back of the neck and is in charge of coordination and balance.
As we perform or listen to music, our brain constantly changes. Neurons are fired in our brain, creating complex circuits and synapses.
Interestingly enough, music involves every region, all systems, and neural subsystems of the brain. In something called functional segregation, detectors analyze music and different parts of the brain process separately and combine to create a holistic understanding.
Our use of fingers while performing an instrument reshapes our brain's ability to distinguish impulses from each individual finger. This reshapes the motor cortex of the brain entirely. This reshaping of the motor cortex could have provided Neanderthals with the motor control needed for fine muscle control.
Not only are there chemical changes that take place in the brain because of music, there's also physical ones too. There's evidence now to suggest that the corpus callosum, or the part of the brain that connects the two hemispheres together, is actually a lot bigger in musicians' brains! The way the brain physically responds to music is also different in musicians versus non-musicians. Come on over and I'll show you some brain scans I found. Take a look at this. Here are the brain scans of the musicians, and here are the brain scans of the non-musicians. These are in young children, 9 to 11 years old. If you notice, the brain scans of the musicians show a lot more activity in these particular places. Now look at this. In the non-musicians, it doesn't show nearly as much activity in those places, proving that there's more activity going on in musicians' brains even when they're kids. Now look at this. Here are brain scans of adults showing the same thing. In non-musicians, sure there's a little bit more activity, but look at how much more there is in the adults. almost 10% more activity in the brain scans of the adults' brains if they're musically inclined. That's amazing! Not only is there a difference in brain activity, musicians versus non-musicians, but there's also a difference in brain activity, speaking versus singing. These brain scans show you what I mean. The first brain scan shows singing versus speaking. If you can see, there's just a tiny bit more activity going on singing versus when you're speaking. The second one, you can see singing versus humming. Those are a little bit more similar. You can see there's about the same amount of activity going on in the brain at the same time. The last one is really interesting, speaking versus vowel production. This doesn't involve any audiation at all, and you can notice that because the brain scans show very little activity. If you compare B scan to C scan, you can really see the difference between when you're audiating and when you're just speaking. Well, thanks for showing us around the brain, Alicia's audiation.
No problem, guys. Come back anytime.
We better head back to the real world.
Hey, find my physical self for me.
No problem. 1, 2, 3.